Hello everyone, I'm Annie Gibbins and you're listening to Memoirs of Successful Women, the podcast where you get to hear candid conversations with fascinating women from around the globe who share aspects of their business and life journey, how they measure their success and what they have learnt along the way. Hello and welcome to Memoirs of Successful Women. Today I'm going to be introducing you to Nicki Bannerman, who's had a career in music, publishing, video and TV. She's currently the presenter, producer on the Influential Women podcast, and she's also all over BBC. She's known for having health and wellbeing shows and really focusing in on human interest stories with very strong emotional narratives. So hopefully we're going to get deep and personal today. So welcome to the program, Nicki.
Wow, thank you. What a beautiful intro. Thank you.
So tell me what you're doing at the moment. Why does Nicki Bannerman, this known sort of star in the UK, everyone knows you're on radio, why do you suddenly have a show called The Influential Women? Let's start with that. Why is that important to you to have a podcast on that?
Well, thank you. What an honor to be here. Well, I just think actually the Influential Women podcast, I started on International Women's Day a few years ago. And I had been producing a podcast and presenting for the BBC, the ABC equivalent here in the UK, helping women in broadcast. And I just thought, well, if I'm helping women in broadcast, why don't I help women that aren't in broadcast? And so on International Women's Day, I thought, oh, well, I'll do this as a bit of a passion project, to help women. And I focused on interviewing celebrities and authors and broadcasters because I knew some of them through the radio industry. And I thought if I interviewed them about their life, their work, their influences, their mantra, and particularly any adversity that they had been through, because we've all been through stuff, particularly in lockdown, introspection and everything has driven us all nuts, hasn't it? But in terms of when you've been through stuff, and I've interviewed women on some hard-hitting topics, that you have gifts and resilience and strength and things that you can help other people who are a bit lost on the way or a bit further on the track behind you, and almost pay it forward. And that started to give me a bit of a passion for, okay, let's cover all things. So I interviewed somebody, actually a lady from Australia, the top narcissistic abuse lady, and interview people on divorce and money and career and children and not being able to have children. And it just became a thing on, actually, let's see, how are the nation really feeling? I used to be a journalist and have my own pages, still a journalist, but had my own pages and wrote emotional narrative. How can we help people that are bereaved at Christmas? How can we help people that, how are people feeling? And I think in lockdown, I thought, well, people aren't going to want to hear about the top career women that are earning hundreds of thousands of pounds and doing really well, because they're going to feel really rubbish about themselves. So I thought they're going to want to hear about, I interviewed a trauma counsellor because we were going through trauma, and who said, find 20 things to be grateful for every day. Even if it's the smell of your, shower cream that smells of marshmallow, just find something. And you can't be, she said, if you're grateful, you can't feel bad about yourself in the same mindset. And just her doing that made me think differently. And all of these women, as the incredible women you've interviewed, have made me think differently and given me gifts from my life. And I thought, if they've changed my life and my mindset and things I remember they've said, then maybe I can help other women change their mindset or their day or even their life. If I change one person's, then we've done what we're here for, aren't we? In terms of, it's been described as achingly human. So I'm really touched by that.
God.
I just think, wow.
I love that. Achingly human. I'm all about getting raw and authentic. So I totally love that, because I think it's actually saying, let's be honest here. Life is challenging. Life is hard. So much of social is the gloss and the, sharing your best day or your best view. And, some of that, you want to pitch your message and show something according to your brand and all that sort of thing. But most of life is riding the highs and lows, right? And things when you've done a bit of living, life really does happen.
Oh my goodness, particularly in lockdown. And I'm so sorry, you know, having lived in Sydney, I'm so sorry that you're in lockdown again. We've been in and out of lockdown here, and it's been more than challenging. And I think we have to mark it as, with the chapters of the lockdowns, what particularly happened and what lessons did we learn in that. And I was very blessed to be on our local BBC radio a lot, closing the show and giving them, you know, thought for the day. Not
I
like
heard you were doing
like a vicar or something.
Yeah,
you know,
it's very pastoral, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh no, I'm not qualified for that. It was a bit like one of those films, you know, Sleepless in Seattle. If anyone's feeling lonely out there, I'm with you. You know, here's a song for you. And actually, I kind of quite like that. And I was doing it from home myself because I couldn't get in the studio. I wasn't allowed, and they knew I had the kit. And you know, it's just, I think we've been very lucky in doing what we do and being able to work from home and talk to people that we don't know like this, that you feel really deeply once you've had a chat, don't you? It's really lovely. I spoke to Britta Fernandez-Schmidt, who's written a book. She's Women for Women International, and she's helped women in war-torn countries who've been through incredible harrowing situations. And she's taught them how to read and write and change their life. And I was really moved by her. But she had the good old imposter syndrome that we all have, that, you know, not enough. And I saw a TED talk of her saying, you know, that I'm too tall, because she is incredibly tall. And at school, she felt too tall. And she was, you know, she was doing herself down. And when I was interviewing her, because I thought she must have been interviewed by 1,000 people, you know, and the same questions, and they all feign that it's new, but it must be really challenging for them. And I said to her, I don't think you're too tall. I said, I think you stand tall and proud. And she said she thought she was too loud. And I said, I don't think you're loud. I think you represent all the women's voices who can't speak for themselves in all of those countries. And I love what you do and whatever. And she actually was virtually crying on the interview and saying, I changed her narrative about how she thought about herself. And I thought, isn't that amazing? You know, we all put people on pedestals and think everyone has got it sussed, but nobody's got it sussed. You know, the highs have never been higher. The lows have never been lower. We've all felt as near to depression as we can get on some days and had to be introspective. And, you know, extroverts like you and I think it's even harder, you know, to be in our head. And I say to my teams, actually, and they, you know, they roll their eyes when I do my life hacks and everything, but I say, we've got to get out of our head space into our heart space.
Yes.
Exactly. And including me, and find something that puts you back there to take away all the challenges.
Absolutely. So, it just grounds you, you know. That's why I got into hiking, and that's why I actually just, you know, got into something that actually just takes me away and allows me to have that focused time while being fit and healthy. But it was such a breakthrough, because I actually realized before I did that I kind of went, I never stopped. I never just, you know, doing it. It's so important just to go, let your mind go blank and then just see what surfaces, right?
It is. And it's mindfulness. And in fact, in lockdown, I interviewed a mindfulness coach, and she was a Buddhist mindfulness coach, and she just took people for walks. And something about walking and talking is very therapeutic. And now she takes people on walking retreats, and she's very spiritual, and she's been through stuff. She was bullied, you know, as a teenager, and felt different. And now she gives back. And so stories like that I did in lockdown, and someone who'd been in prison. Because I just said, and she was in prison for 7 years, I just said, how did you deal with that? And she was very sort of laid back and just said, well, just get on with it, you know. And actually you think, okay, she got on with it, so we need to get on with it, you know. Sometimes that wallowing in self-pity and everything, isn't it? It's hard, and you think, well, not as hard as what a lot of people are going. It's fair to say it is hard, but we don't have a choice, do we? We have to get through it.
Certainly not if you're in prison. There's no plan B, is there? And sometimes it is. When you hit a wall, you got to go, you do have to just deal with it. And then you then have to work out, well, how will I deal with it? And there's still choices in that, right? You know, and we'll see, you know, even all the people that we've interviewed and met from various walks of life, there's still choices at every time as to how you respond in certain situations.
That's so true. It is. And you can choose happy. You know, it's very easy for all of us, you know, to choose, you know, grumpy and, you know, it's not fair sort of stuff. But
Yes.
it is a real struggle to try and think, okay, there must be something good. But we
Yes.
all have to, yes.
I was
to
telling
really
you
try
too
to.
before we came on that, you know, that's right. Sydney, where I am, has been locked down for 11 weeks now, and our premier
my
says we
goodness.
might get out in 5 more weeks. So it's kind of like, you know, to everyone, it's very easy to get in this, oh my gosh, like you just feel trapped. You know, as soon as someone says you can't go out, you suddenly go, oh my gosh, I just want to go
Yes,
out.
it's that naughtiness in this.
Hilarious. You know, and they'll give you an hour of exercise, and most people have never done an hour of exercise a day, but all of a sudden everybody wants to go for exercise.
I know, it's suddenly like,
so it's so funny, but it's like that. It's like, well, what's my narrative? So I've just gone and writing ebooks and updating websites and doing new courses and go, okay, well, what
really
can you do, right? And that's
exactly.
right.
It's that controllable, isn't it? What are we in control of?
Can you do? Even when, you know, my kids have been, you know, had accidents or, you know, challenging sort of life situations or whatever, you can, you know, you can get in that going, even in the worst situations that I think you go with, there's still things that you go, okay, you either dwell in it or you go, well, what can I do in this situation?
That's very wise. I know that is. And actually it's making us talk more. You know, I've talked on a deeper level to my teenagers. You know, we've said, how's your mental health today? Or have you had your walk for your, you know, for your well-being? Or, you know, you talk to your neighbors, not just sort of, you know, lightly, but say, but how are you really, you know? And actually I'm feeling really crap or whatever. You know, that actually you would never normally have those conversations, would you? It's and it changes day by day, you know, minutes within the day. You know, it's very bizarre.
It's certainly
we're very
permission. It's given us permission, hasn't it, to have that conversation, you know, with people that you never would have. You know, I know even doing business meetings during the day, people always start now with how you're coping, like, really, are you okay? And it's kind of like, wow, you know, I mean, I've never had that you know, before COVID.
No one would ever say, are you really okay?
No one had a bad day. You're just here to
it was always fine. We were all, I know, and in fact
we're always wonderful.
the many lockdowns, and we're very blessed here at the moment, actually, because suddenly, and in fact my son went back to college today, it's everyone is back at college sitting next to each other, and that's the first time in nearly 2 years.
Wow.
And no masks on the train, and it's really weird. And suddenly, and in fact he had COVID a few weeks ago, very badly actually, and he's been double vaccinated.
Wow.
And my daughter's had it twice and had long COVID, you know, so it's scary and, you know, very challenging, but it is surreal and normal at the moment. But there's rumors that it could change near a winter, you know. You're in winter, every time it's in winter, so you'll be fine by Christmas and we won't, you know.
We've just burst into spring, so we're excited. We're coming up.
Exactly. And you can get in the garden, you can read. People have taken up a lot of reading, you know. I've read more. I think we have more time.
We've done games nights, things that we, you know,
fantastic.
It's really
cocktail nights. I know, I loved all those Zoom parties. Cocktail nights, you know, film nights, any excuse for chatting nights, you know.
So those people that you mix with, and you mix with some pretty high power, you know, celebrities, what have you noticed that has been there, you know, because there was usually before COVID, there was a bigger divide, right? They lived in this bubble of, you know, that's right, that everything was perfect or glossy or bits and pieces, or they were hardcore and that was their brand. You know, what differences have you noticed now? Because COVID's been a bit of a leveler, hasn't it? Like we've actually
definitely it has.
And now they're not off rocking everywhere, they're just living life like everybody else.
Well, we don't have that FOMO anymore that, you know, everyone's having a better time than us, because when you're all in lockdown, no one's having a good time, are they? And you get some sort of sad comfort from that, but particularly with the celebrities, because I don't think they've ever had FOMO. You know, they've always had the idyllic life, or the perceived idyllic life, and the jet and the holidays and the whatever that we all strive for. But I think they've struggled, you know, because they think their choices have been taken away. You can't record an album, or you can't be in a film, or you can't be on the theatre. And I think they've had to, and lost a lot of money. And they've, you know, I have, been fortunate in the celebrities have been at home, and I think you can't get away because I know you're there. And I've very nearly got some really, really A-listers, but obviously there's still a lot of charity things they do at home, and a lot of, they're still very busy. But I know they're not going out in the lockdowns. But I think they've become more human as well. That they've let people into their homes, they've recorded from home. We've all seeked, company, and questioned our relationships, our friendships, needed more love and comfort. And I think they've even reached out. We've done a lot of reaching in, haven't we? A lot of introspection, but they've reached out to their team members or other people on Zoom, on all of these social channels, to connect, because it is what it's all about, isn't it? That connection that we do, and we're lucky to be in that industry to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So you are in this amazing industry, and you'll have listeners listening into this podcast going, well, how did Nicki Bannerman just suddenly, how did she get to be on BBC? How did she get to do these podcasts? How is she suddenly leading influential women, and doing all of this? And I know that you've got a real passion for mentoring and coaching other women to be able to, like everyone has an opportunity, sometimes we have lucky breaks. Sometimes it's just, you also get helped by who and sometimes it's just hard slogging hours and hours and hours, and then overnight you suddenly get discovered after 10 years of working crazy hours. How does that affect you, and what do you try to give back? And
well, yes, I think it's a combination of all of that. I think the funny thing is, and I say actually, to friends or people with their career, what did you want to do when you were about 15? Because I really think that that's before you're guided by your peers or your parents or your luck or whatever. And I always wanted to work for the BBC or to be a journalist. It was really weird. And I didn't get into journalism college because I flunked some of my qualifications around the time. And the BBC flatly said no. And I think it gave me that inner determination that one day, so I went all the way around the houses. I started in advertising. I had an amazing first career where it was more just sort of do what you could at the time and see what happens and have some fun along the way. And it was just by luck that I was in London for half a day. I'd come down for my grandmother's funeral. I was living in Scotland at the time, and I went to a recruitment agency and I said, I need a job today in order to leave Scotland. And they said, you won't get a job today. I said, I don't care what it is, just please find me an interview today. And she said, well, I've only got this one at a record company, but they won't be able to see you today. I said, no, I must see them today because that's all I've got. I think it's being pushy or determined in a more charming way, not a rude way, but not refusing to take no for an answer, but just thinking, if you can't get in the front door, try the back door or the side door. Surely, really, I'm sure someone can, So anyway, I had an interview that afternoon and I got a job at this record company, and I left Scotland and I moved down there. And I think once I was in, I thought, wow, I love PR. They're launching an album. I'll go in the studio and I'll listen to what they're doing and I'll learn to produce. And then, oh, they're doing a PR event. Oh, I'll go and help them. Wow, that's really cool. I'll sit this person and say, how did you do that or whatever? And I think because I was young and enthusiastic and over helpful, because that was your life and you didn't really have anything else to do, you just get promoted and you meet more people. And then along the way, that went from record company into publishing, into more launching music in Europe, and then into video and film, where I was buying TV programs and music and producing and presenting. And then they sent me to Australia, which I love Australia. I miss Australia. They sent me to Sydney in my 20s.
Wow.
Where I worked for Time Warner. And I was very lucky because, I had a company car, company flat. I was, living the dream. I was allowed a flight home a year. It was a really special time. And I stayed for 3 or 4 years. It was really special out there. And I went to Sydney, and then I worked for Virgin Megastores, and then Blockbuster at the time, the retail video outlet, bought them. And then they paid for me to come back to Europe to do the marketing. So, and I did my qualifications while I was working because I didn't get them at school. I did 3 marketing qualifications in the evenings or at weekends, not because I wanted to be, you know, a massive career woman, but because I wanted to have some qualification in something that I was interested in. And I think through that, and I always had that 15-year-old me saying, I want to work with celebrities, I want to write, I want to work for the BBC. And just through my career, you know, in film, I met a lot of music stars and broke bands in Australia, or met a lot of film stars, and I went to America. And I just thought, I like working with some of these people, interesting people, you know, whether the community or celebrity, people that have, everyone's got a story. And I just love people, the same as you do, just love chatting, you know, it's the only thing I know how to do. It's the only thing I'm okay at. So when I came back, I went into PR and set that up my own company, only because at the time Blockbuster was changing and relocating everyone. And I thought, well, actually, I'll set up my own. So I set up my own PR agency and got a film company as my first client because that was who I knew. So it wasn't, it was luck. It's who you know, it's what you know, it's a bit of judgment, you know, along the way. And the BBC was literally, because my second career, after I'd had children, I thought, what do I really want to do? I thought, I've always loved radio.
Yeah.
You know, so I've just volunteered for my local radio station. I was their newsreader for a few years, reporting. And through that, started to go to all the BBC training and meeting people. And 7 years ago, they were talking about podcasts. And I was like, it's just my curious brain. What is a podcast? And they're like, oh, that sounds fun. I'll do some of that, you know. So now we're the gurus, you know, we've been doing podcasting for ages, and people, a lot of people still don't know what a podcast is, but
I know, and it's just so fun.
It's so fun. It's just like the best fun you can have. Yes. But when we started, there weren't there weren't many women doing it then, but now I think women can give themselves a voice, and that's what I love, giving women a voice, giving youths a voice, giving people who don't normally get their stories. And on International Women's Day last year, I just did a tweet and said, anyone who wants to promote their business, because I just thought, I'll interview, you know, anyone who's just struggling to try and, you know. So I just did a whole week's series of just short snippets on helping women that just got a local, you know, whatever they're selling or marketing or trying to sell, or
that's great,
dealing with someone had cancer, you know. So stuff like that. You help so many women. You know, I love your trailblazing, your courses, your books, everything. And loads of twins.
Loads of twins, that's right. And our little granddaughters, I've got 2 granddaughters now who are just absolutely adorable.
Hey.
So, and I think I love what you've shared there in that, in your journey of your career, because, you know, while we joke a little bit and go, some of it is luck, because you do meet people, but you've also, you know, increased your likelihood of receiving that luck, I'll say, because you've leaned into what you've loved, you know, and by doing that, by then choosing to spend those hours volunteering to get yourself into a specific situation, to choose to stay back and go and listen to people in studios and get to know people. There's so much value for those people who are listening who've had those doors closed, you know. I think it's really important to realize you don't suddenly get on the BBC, you don't suddenly have a global podcast, you don't suddenly do these things, but you do hopefully achieve those dreams, because the 15-year-old said, you know, a bit like my 15-year-old voice said, Annie, you'll be a businesswoman. And I had all the no's, and I went, well, you make it happen, but you've made it happen in your own way. And that's where I've been fascinated by. You think the destination has to be the BBC, but even if it wasn't, you know, here you go, probably, you know, 30 years later, you know, you suddenly go, oh, well, who would have thought? Here I am, you know, but it's
and you could tell your 15-year-old self, you know, I'm certainly not up there with the big BBC or, you know, radio presenters with the breakfast shows and the whatever. And a lot of women are now, luckily, have broken through, because the men were literally running the shows until maybe, you know, they weren't on the planet anymore. So a lot of women have moved into those roles, which is amazing. I'm on the peripheral, you know, I've done some podcasts with the BBC, and I've done some lovely, I live in Suffolk, I've done some, you know, some of the guest appearances for my regional BBC, and that's great for me. I'm still think, wow, I've managed that massive corporation to be involved. But, you know, I would say to some of the people listening, we do have that voice saying, you know, they've said no, so I'll never do it. But I've listened to some of these radio presenters, and they have said it's the man hours in the driving seat, the same with the pilots, and eventually you will get noticed. And don't give up, and don't take the same as any creative industry, theatre, music,
Totally agree.
art, just keep taking the no's. And I've become better at it because I'm not very good with criticism or rejection or anything. I don't know, many of us are, but I think you have to think, okay, it's not personal.
No.
It's just timing or money or budget or whatever. And something better must be around the corner, or something different, or it's changing your direction. Because I think we all have to think more like that, because otherwise you could just think, oh God, what am I going to do with myself?
I know. And that's where I look and think, well, that's right. I've even offered people, well, while you're on lockdown, if you're not working, if you want to even get experience working for me, doing some social media or marketing or creating something. And then it's amazing how many people say, no, they're going to wait. And you go, you don't realize that the people, I've employed people who were volunteers, who then go, gosh, if you turned up as a volunteer, and that's what it's like. It's just like,
you would have paid them.
If you really want it, I've got one.
Definitely.
That I go, oh my gosh, like the first time that job came around, I'm going, of course I'm going to choose you. You're one, you've been in it, and you're super passionate. And a lot of business is actually the people, as well as the package skills, but you want to know that they're passionate about it. And that's
yes, I think it is passion and I think it's passion over money, because money waxes and wanes, particularly in my life, or particularly if you're a freelancer.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the women I've interviewed, they've taught me a lot, the same as they have with you. But I think a lot of them have said, multiple income streams, do different things, or do something, passive income, other things. So you might do something you don't really enjoy to pay the bills or whatever. And then you keep doing your passion because one day that will pay off.
Absolutely.
So it's just mixing it up a bit, isn't it? In terms of, you never know, you can have one conversation that changes everything. And 100%. Everything changes in 100%. Lockdown. Everything's changed.
I interviewed this amazing lady who was she's a lawyer in Poland, and then she was passionate about photography. So she was obviously the disappointment to her parents and left law and became a fashion photographer. And it was only because she was taking photos in Milan, and someone famous saw her pictures and loved it, and then all of a sudden her world changed. Kind of go, well, yes. She goes, oh, but I was so lucky. And you go, yeah, you were, but you also made a decision to actually make a big bold call,
brave decision
yourself to be there. And I'm all into that. I'm really into to show up, right? If you're showing up
and you mentor so many people,
then people will see you passionate about it. It's like, what would you do when people when you don't think people are watching? That's when you know you're really in the sweet spot, because you're doing it because you just love it and you chip away.
Exactly. And that's what I did for this local. That's what I did for this local radio station for 3 years. I did it as a hobby. I didn't do it for a career. I just did it for a bit of a laugh, that I was in this shed on the middle of a main road somewhere that was local community radio station. And I was just talking, there's something really comforting about sitting in a sort of padded room talking to yourself, isn't there? In terms of, some people are out there listening, and whether you're reading the news or interviewing somebody, I think it's really relaxing. It's really mindful. And I never thought it would lead to the opportunity to be trained by the BBC in London and Manchester, and trained in interviewing, and that was really, really special. And, that actually was a gift for me to do different work and to do the podcast and everything I do now. And the podcast only happened, as I said, because I said, what's a podcast? I think if you're willing and you ask the questions and you do things that are a bit different, and having done marketing and content in music and film, it's always been content. Music was vinyl when I worked with it, and then it was CDs and I worked in that, and then it was video and I worked in that, and then it became streaming, so it was always content that was just packaged differently and promoted differently. And this is just still content. It's just a different way of communicating, and I like keeping up with all the think what's next, and the technology, and just being aware of what's going on. And you feel a bit younger to your own teams, don't you? The same as you do, that if we're we've got podcasts, so we're cool as parents.
We're very cool. Even if we just tell
They don't think we're cool, but we think we're cool.
we're totally cool. So what have you been your biggest challenges in this journey then, Nicki? What have you actually,
oh my goodness,
wow, these are
well, personal or well, I mean, personal wise, I've been through, a tricky divorce. I've been through a different operation every lockdown, actually, bizarrely. So personally, I think I've had a lot of reflection and a lot of things I've learned that can help other people. To say, actually, when we've all been through stuff, whether it's tiny stuff or mammoth stuff, it still feels like big stuff. And you still need the support, the inner strength, the resilience, the mental toughness. I interviewed a mental toughness. A lot of these women came into my life when I was going through stuff, and you think there must be something in that, the attraction. When I was going through a really challenging divorce, I suddenly was doing some PR for a mental toughness coach, for an author who had had incredible challenges in her life. And I got strength from these people I was working with and interviewing and doing some writing about. And I just thought, wow, what even is mental toughness? And then I learned about that and I thought, gosh, that can help me. And now I've got girlfriends going through stuff. And I think, oh, I can tell you what this mental toughness person told me. And then that can help you. And then you can help someone and things like that. So just people, I think people, and even guests, the same as you probably find, sometimes we get guests that ask to be on our shows. And, that's a blessing. You think, wow, I can't believe, someone in New York is right. I had someone in New York Times wrote to me and said, could I be on your show? And I'm like, hello.
Okay.
and you just, I had a film company in London who invited me to a red carpet event and, would you like to interview any of our A-listers on the film? And you just think, I can't believe actually that our little podcast, have become something that of value to other people because we've got a niche audience and people are receptive. So personal challenges, I went through that. I actually had in lockdown too, I think it was, I had my appendix out, which I didn't realize. Your appendix at 16 and in your later years, I shall say, can happen, those two sort of areas. And suddenly I was having life-saving surgery in lockdown in a hospital, wearing a mask, thinking, what the hell is going on? And then when I came out, I said to, and I had to apologize to these other poor ladies in pain on my ward who weren't allowed to have surgery, just pain management, because it was lockdown. You were only allowed life-saving surgery. And I was like, so sorry, they're taking me down, thinking, why are they taking me down? It was like, why am I having life-saving surgery? So when I came out, I immediately, when I'm recuperating, phoned the BBC locally and said, would you want a story on the NHS, about having an operation in lockdown? They said, yes, So it's just stuff like that. I wasn't trying to be an opportunist. I just thought,
it's just
I've had a real story as a journalist. Exactly. And actually, do you want to know the inside story and actually what it's like? And they were amazing.
Yeah.
They were like angels, and just
it's amazing. How crazy is that your life-saving surgery was suddenly an advantage because you got care when someone else wasn't as bad as you and then they didn't. Like, that's crazy, right? So it's fascinating for people, right? Because you would
exactly. And it wasn't fair because I just thought these women are in more pain than I am in.
Yeah.
And they can't be operated on. And I was thinking, help her rather than me. And they were like, no, because otherwise you will die. And you just think, oh, can you not tell me that, please?
That's right. Really up it. It's like, okay, well, I better have my surgery then.
So I don't know. A lot of these weird experiences. I think if you can find some sort of strength to laugh at the dark times is how we can
life much easier. Don't worry, I laugh a lot because I've had such
we can laugh or cry, can't we? It's like, and who's going to care? And actually, I also say, I think we can live life forwards, but we can only understand it backwards. Because sometimes you think, why me? And I do, we all have a bit of a pity party. And I was saying to my children the other day something I read, and I said, we can either live in a scarcity mindset where we don't think we've got enough and we're not good enough, and why, particularly in lockdown, why have our friends got better this and better that, and everywhere, the sort of I think the comparisons have become much more obvious, and the sort of haves and the have-nots, and then you just think, actually, or you can live in an abundant mindset where you've got everything you need, you know, supposedly, and everything we need is inside us. And otherwise it's just external validation, isn't it? So when I remind myself what I don't have, and what I would like, you know, it's a difference between what we want and what we need.
Yes, exactly.
And I think, and I do have to remind myself, because then you think, and I have become more aware, I think, in lockdown, you think, is that my ego saying, why haven't I got that, or whatever? You just think, but it's not what I need. So actually, and someone I interviewed said, you are exactly where you need to be right now. So trust the process. So a lot of these things, you see, I've taken something from every interview I've had, as you probably have.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's right. We can all look back in hindsight and go, well, I wish I knew something and I did something. Everybody does that. But the fact is, you need those stepping stones. You need the time, you need the influence, you need the education, the experience. Sometimes you just need to actually have experienced all of those raw emotions that you didn't like, but it brings you back fueled. It makes you suddenly go, darn it, BBC, I'm going to get there one day myself, right? Like, you know, it makes you.
I'm still trying to get it. Yes,
drivers,
right?
To the day I die, you know, you made a mistake not getting me, even though I did flunk my exams. You know, admittedly, you know, but it does. It makes you fire.
It fuels it. It does. It fuels it, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I think all of it fuels you, and you know, whether it's past relationships or whatever, or friendship. I think a lot of friendships have changed or been challenged in lockdown, you know, because some people have been really laid back and like, you know, we're fine, don't worry, let's meet up. And some have been sort of just don't see me for 4 months or touch me, or if I have to send you a birthday card, I'll throw it over the road, you know, sort of don't touch it. Or some want a hug. It's really weird. So, and in fact, now we're allowed to hug. And I actually went to a music festival the other week, and oh my goodness, it was really surreal. I felt like I've been transported to another planet. And I went to Greece a month ago.
It would feel so weird.
It is so weird. But all the paperwork and the, you know, it is quite traumatically stressful. And the paperwork and the test and the antigen test and the fit to fly and the, you know, I know when you're in lockdown, you're thinking, wow, they managed to do that.
I know. I'm like, imagine getting out of Sydney, let alone going to Greece.
I know it is really, but it still was.
Or imagine being able to hug someone.
I know. And at this music festival, people hadn't seen for years, literally years, because we haven't, have we? But everyone's now asking people if they want a hug, you know, because it's like, hug, you know, a hug that people put their arms out. It's like, I'm open to one if you want one, but if you don't want one, that's fine, sort of thing. And then
I know there'll be this new bit of other people going, oh no, now I'm feeling.
It is. No, some people say no, I'd rather not. And you don't think
people won't hug anymore.
You're weird. They're like, okay, if that's cool with you, you know. It's like, I think and I've said to some girlfriends, it's you know, however, it's your coping process. It's from your past experiences or whatever. It's just whatever you can deal with is fine, and none of us, you know, it's not really our right to criticize how someone else is dealing with something, because it's their traumas and dominoes of traumas and whatever. It's just like, that's really, it's okay, you know, that's your stuff. But do you want to hug or not hug? I mean, I'm a real hugger. I don't mind, but I do sort of turn my head a bit now. And in fact, my son, when he had coronavirus, we were literally, weirdly, because he was in the house, weirdly in different, I said, right, we're going to have zones. So I did prison food outside his room, and you know, you can't come down for 3 minutes, and then I spray this and stand here. It's really weird. And we were eating in different zones and showering in different zones and not really speaking. And then I got those plastic visas with the glasses. After 10 days, I said, we can hug both with our plastic visas and glasses on after 10 days. Which was just so weird, but quite bonding in a way, in that you think, hopefully, when we all look back in 20 years' time and say, how did we get through it, other than drinking too much and eating crisps? And that we'll say, do you remember that time we did this, or
a lot
whatever?
Of quality time in there as well. Yeah, exactly.
There is. There's bonding time in the madness, isn't there? And I think all we can do is find a little bit of joy in the madness, create joy. I'm a big kid, I try and create joy, and I buy everything online all the time, parcels. But even things like light the fire pit in the winter, you don't need to where you are, but light the fire pit and buy some little colored flame things that I put in, and then watch the colored flames and atmosphere, light some candles, toast some marshmallow, do something that just creates some memories. Because it is hard, and I feel for you guys.
We'll get there eventually, but
what a beautiful place you've got when you are allowed out again. I miss Sydney.
It
that
is
lifestyle's
so
just
beautiful.
It's so enviable, and it's winter, although it's coming out spring now. Yes.
So now anyway, we're still allowed to go for a little walk every day, so you make the most of that.
Exactly. You'll be allowed out at Christmas.
We'll be allowed out for Christmas, hopefully.
You can write another book between now and then.
Oh, definitely. I wrote one last weekend, actually. I wrote one called Be More, and now I'm in the middle of writing one called
like that.
More. So
nice.
So I'll give you a link to one on my website.
Oh yes, please. We need to have a chat. I love what you do, and your mentor.
All right, I'm going to get inspired and write all these
self-development.
So yes, I've definitely.
Well, I think creatives, we are lucky in that we can get inspired, can't we? By
and learn new skills, right? Now I'm just like the queen of Canva, and I can make a website and I can adapt things. I'm like, doing things
that's amazing.
Before. I know.
You're very techie.
I've become quite techie.
More in stuff. I've been doing a life empowerment coaching course, actually.
Right.
I think I'm about halfway through, but I just think actually, that hopefully will help others as well. It's about empowerment, isn't it? Just feeling.
Exactly.
I mean, you do some incredible courses, but it's just about some of the people I've interviewed, have given me gifts, and I want to do something with it. I don't know what yet, but
absolutely love that. And how will people find you then? Because we can chat all day, but
how will they find me? Good point. Well, they can find me on Nicki Bannerman Radio. So that's NICKI Bannerman, like flagmanradio.co.uk is my website, or on Twitter at Nicki HBC. The podcast is on at Influential Pod, or it's literally on Spotify, Amazon. You can ask Alexa, play the Influential Women podcast. And I love doing that, actually. That's quite funny in the kitchen.
Alexa, play my podcast.
And then say, oh, who's that? And you can Bluetooth it to the car. And on Amazon Music, we've just been invited to be on. So that's quite exciting.
And I love that. You can just share your message, share your gems, share your learnings, and that's it. It's a wonderful thing when people get to, our stage of life. You go, oh my gosh, I actually have learned so many things, and I'm actually happy to pass them on. I'm happy to share them. And then also to be continually learning like we do. Every time you meet someone, you learn new ways, new approaches, new thinking, new mindsets. It's like fascinating.
Exactly. I love it. I love the power of the mind.
Absolutely love it. Well, everyone listening in, I'll be putting all of Nicki's details on my podcast platform.
Bless you.
And definitely you'll be able to, if you've missed any of that, be able to go and find her. And you'll soon be having your empowerment course coming out as well.
I'll some mentor coaching from you on that one, but that's
we'll get together, we'll make it happen. And I just go, the more the better, right? The more the better.
We'll do something together. We'll help heal the world, one woman at a time, one man at a time. And in fact, probably the same as you, quarter of our audience are men. And I think that's really fun too, because they obviously want to know why we're influential, but they want to understand us more. And that's great too.
It's absolutely brilliant, because it's not women empowerment is not anti-male. It's actually going, gosh, come on, guys, come with us on this journey and affirm what we're doing. And so many beautiful men are out there, flying the flag with us, going, you go, girls.
They are to champion women. Yeah,
absolutely fantastic.
Exactly, and to lift us up.
Plus, they find us fascinating.
We are fascinating. Well, we are, because we can think about so many things at the same time and do so many things at the same time.
I know, and we talk about everything, and they're like, I can't believe what we can talk about. It's quite fascinating. I'm like, I know, right? We don't have any.
I know. Although they are talking about different things. And actually, when I did go for a walk in the park, I actually completely stopped in my tracks. I heard two men talking about relationships, and I don't think I've ever heard that in my life. And I wanted to turn around or go and sit down and join them, because I just thought, that's really special, actually, that
that's
they
great.
feel enabled to
Yeah.
do that, because why shouldn't they?
I should be. Yeah.
Exactly. They've suddenly learned, what we've been talking about for years.
Exactly. And COVID has mixed it up. I was meeting with a guy that I was working with recently, and he's going, oh, sorry, I'm just unavailable because his wife's got her work can work during COVID, but his isn't. So he's there at home trying to homeschool 4 children while, she's out. And he's like going, oh my gosh, I've entered this world of, that's right. Who do I talk to? Who do I ask? Who else is in my same space?
Exactly.
So there's many men who are actually in that situation as well.
Exactly. And realizing it's not easy, and it's not easy all being together. Too much togetherness is driving everyone insane. It's like, give me my walk. Are you only allowed one?
Everyone's got one little spot. I'll have the dining room.
All you're allowed.
Room. You just get.
I think they upped ours from 1 walk to 2 walks a day, and we were all suddenly like, wow. And actually, then at least you can swim in the sea and stuff soon. Yeah, that'd be so nice.
Oh, that's really great. It's amazing. Even if you weren't a surfer, because I live near the beach in Manly.
Oh, how lovely!
Even if you weren't a surfer, it's hilarious how many people are out there for their hour exercise.
Yeah, taking it up
on their board, because you go, why not? It's just so refreshing.
Definitely, and it becomes so much more valuable as well. When you haven't had it, doesn't it? Absolutely. Just the feeling of the sea and the sand and the it's so comforting. Lucky you, and breathe. Yes, and listen to lots of podcasts.
Well, listen to everyone. Thanks for listening into mine with Nicki today, and also pop over to Nicki's podcast as well. Share the love. Go get to know her a little bit better. Support this woman and watch all the stuff that she's going to be producing over the next few years. Women like her, women like me, we never stop. We're always out there creating something. And thank you so much for sharing your story with me on my podcast today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed chatting to you. Keep on doing amazing stuff. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Memoirs of Successful Women. You can find me at anniegibbins.com, where you can download my free resources, get connected on social, and check out my online magic transformation program. If you love this show, feel free to subscribe to future episodes and, of course, share it with your friends. I'll see you again soon, and until then, happy podcasting.